Well, hello Spawns, we're going to move on straight towards Season 34 Survivor tier list. It's a little bit more dumbed down compared to the usual, but it's still the same 5 categories that we have as before. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you have any, of course, different opinions, please just leave it down in the comments below and I will read it whenever I get the time. Well, I usually read it almost every day, but we'll see how that goes. Please enjoy the video. Now let's move on towards the first survivor. First survivor will be Lucky Guy. Lucky Guy hasn't got any much major adjustments. Lucky Guy is still pretty weak early game due to his kind of item dependency when it comes to that lucky box as well. Yes, he may be able to, you know, get some items from some other survivors, but usually when he's first chased, it doesn't really end up as well too. Not only that, right, if you think about current day meta, Ivy's an issue, Opera Singer is an issue, Goatman and Hula Blue. These are honestly the type of hunters that can counter Lucky Guy pretty easily. So what I would say is, for a survivor with one item, and it's kind of like, you know, a 50-50 RNG type of thing, it's not really that good for now as a Lucky Guy to be played in current day season. Now, you do see him being played in tourney sometimes, yes, but overall what I would say is, he's still particularly weak, as in, like, I don't think he can move it up any further aside from the fact that you're in a 4-man team and if the hunter actually allows you to get an item from the chest, because even if there's a decoder on the team, sometimes the hunter might just prefer to go after you if you're A, either closer, or B, you're just, you know, a better target overall to chase after. So there is that too for Lucky Guy. I do think, right, some characters are meant to be kept weak, and from what I know that you did try to buff him once, but I don't think he's going to be making it out of that, you know, weak chamber anytime soon. But that's that for Lucky Guy. And then let's move on towards the next one. The next one will be Doctor. For Doctor herself, Doctor will also be considered weak for several reasons too. If you think about this properly, Doctor, okay, there's Ivy that she may be able to counter, but then, like, you know, for Ivy, she can just get 60 stacks, blink you, and then 100 stack you with the Phantom. And then there's Hula Boo as well, who has, you know, the fire field, who basically nullifies your skills at all times. You might say, hey, but Goatman shouldn't be too much of an issue if you try to play Pala Mind Games. Goatman probably is an issue. Goatman against Doctor, you might think, hey, Doctor counters Goatman. But if you think about it again, it's kind of like Doctor vaults 10% slower. So if the Pala has already been dropped down, there's a huge chance of Doctor being able to get terror shocked, especially with peepers as well. Goatman's going to be able to spot out where you are healing. And all of your, you know, interactions are slowed down with peepers alongside being inside the gate as well. So for Doctor right now, I do think it's a little bit unfair for us to only compare it to Goatman. But like, if you think about it right, who does Doctor realistically counter? Hermit and Joseph. Are you going to be able to see those two that often in rank, especially after Hermit's nerf? No, not really. No, not really. She is still, I mean, they did buff her before. Well, I mean, she can heal and she does maintain the heal regardless of, you know, whether she takes damage or not, but still pretty low on the standard, I won't lie, for Doctor, because it's very similar to Lucky Guy. Hunters would rather chase after you sometimes instead of a decoder, just because you're more of an easier chase, or because their kit has things that allows them to catch up towards you ASAP and land those hits to deny you from healing. So yeah, there's that for Garner. Overall, no debuffs in particular except for that vault debuff, but still, that syringe needing to stand still in one place to heal might cost Doctor quite a lot when it comes to the long run. And we'll move on next then to Lawyer. We're gonna put Lawyer on versatile still. No, you know what? No, we're gonna put Lawyer on solo ranker now. I'm gonna put Lawyer down for several reasons. Reason number one is because several other decoders did get buffed. Like, Lawyer isn't a bad character used still. He cannot get terror shocked, he has window vault speed, he has movement speed, and he has 15% extra decoding speed right after finishing the first cipher machine, and, you know, it slowly gains up as he is decoding a cipher as well, so that's not too bad. But why is Lawyer a little bit lower compared to the usual? Now, if this was before Goatman nor Hula Boo that got introduced into rank, maybe I would be able to put Lawyer a little bit up higher. Yes, those two are still perma-banding rank. Yes, this is a rank tier list, but I do think it's to the point where now we're like, okay, there's now 2 new extra hunters that basically counter lawyer, and then there's still 2 existing ones. Even though they have gotten nerfed, they are still existing as of now. Opera and Ivy is now available for rank, since, you know, all the way until you reach tier 7 you can ban 2 hunters only, and usually those 2 slots are saved for Goatman and Hullabaloo. So for now, what I will say is lawyer, even at higher tiers, he's not being used that much. Yes, he's able to see where the hunters are, but still, a lot of these days it's high chase type meta characters. You see Soul Weaver being played out in IJL, you see Geisha being played out in, you know, CN, IVL, and then there's just so many other things that we have to take into consideration too. Overall for lawyer though, he doesn't really have any debuffs. From what I remember, yeah, he doesn't really have any debuffs. He's vault buff, he's decoding buff, he's movement speed buff, he's veteran speed boost, and he also cannot get terror shock. So he's still a really solid you know, container / decoder to play in ranked. But I do think a lot of people aren't playing him as much. It's just kind of a popularity team, but he is still pretty good. Next is going to be Thief. We're going to be moving down Thief to skill dependent now after we moved him up into solo ranker last season. It's kind of very similar when it comes to meta changes too. For Thief right now, Hullabaloo is an issue. For Thief right now, Goldman is an issue. For Thief right now, Ivy is an issue. Opera is also another issue, right? Usually good opera singers will not chase you. They will not chase you when you are in open area. They would rather just go after someone else instead, and they can go after someone else instead, which is why overall it's just better for, you know, Thieves to not go after. Sorry, it's just it's just overall better for Thief to not chase after Thief. He still does counter, you know, your oddball Gala, your oddball Gabonbon, your oddball, you know, Nayid, and all the ability usage characters. But what I would say is very skill dependent, right? Because if the hunter plays just overall better than you, no matter how good you are, you're still gonna somehow get, going to get countered in a way or two. And I guess when we're talking about skill dependent, it's also could mean 4-man team as well. He does work okay-ish in 4-man teams depending on how good your 4-man team is, but usually with great support comes great responsibility of leaving a Cypher machine and having to stall it for a really long time. I know that Thief has that capacity, but also at the same time it's kind of like the more you stun the hunter, the less they get stunned. So it's kind of like a built-in Desperate fight against the Thief's flashlights, and you can build Desperate Fight if you really want to, right? So there's also that too. Now, I'm quite sure he gives more calibrations, but that's more of a buff than a nerf. And that's about it for his debuff, honestly. No decoding debuff, overall nice containment. Theoretically speaking, very good support, but with the, you know, 4 meta characters that's in rank right now, pretty hard for Thief to actually come out. And even if Thief is able to come out, there's Anne, there's Hermit, there's Wax Artist, there's like Undead isn't played as much, so we won't take Undead into consideration, but there's just so many more other characters that you do need to think, and there's also much more characters that are similar to Thief but just better overall. So yeah, Thief will be a part of skill dependent. Next will be Gardener. Gardener is more or less for me skill dependent, but ahead of Thief. As of now, for Gardener's status, her 50-second bubble shield bubble should be able to last you until Blink is ready, so that at least guarantees you a 60-second containment. Even if it doesn't, you should be able to take a hit and take a window speed boost to go towards a little bit of a better containment area, right? For Gardener, her main kit is basically about, hey, if I'm not in a good spot and I got caught off, I still have my 50-second bubble to rotate around the map. That's good. And even if your bubble has disappeared, it can be regenerated if you stand still for 2 seconds. So this allows for a no damage rescue. This allows for you to forcefully break the chair. This allows you to forcefully force the hunter to hit you if you're actually body blocking. This allows you to buy 5 extra seconds of time before, you know, the hunter's able to hit you. This allows you to get a no damage rescue, and so on and so go for it. But still, once again, still pretty skill dependent because you need to be able to, you know, time the basic attack of the hunters properly to charge up your bubble. You also need to be able to know how to harass when it comes to being in 4-man teams or just being solo, or even when you're first chased, you just need to know how to solo contain without any items and with just a bubble shield that you have to stand still for 2 seconds. So there's a lot to take into consideration for Gardener as well. It's not just about breaking chairs, using bubbles, rotating and only containing for seconds. There's 60 seconds, there's kind of a lot more than just that, right? So yes, Gardener is still pretty skill dependent. Next will be Magician. Magician would be solo ranker. I would say overall for Magician, I'll pull him down below Lawyer. I will pull him down below Lawyer. Magician, he still remains the same. He's not a bad container. It's just that his mind games might not be as best as some other type of characters, but mind games are still mind games at the end of the day. Magician is able to use the wand to block certain paths and force the hunter to hit the illusion, and then once the hunter hits the illusion, he gets highlighted in white for 3 to 5 seconds. It just basically allows the survivor to know where the Magician is, right? But overall, he's not too much of an issue, let's say, when it comes to new players playing him. I would recommend new players playing Magician as well, because he's one of those easy type of characters where even if you do fail your items once, you're still able to use your items, unlike Perfumer, let's say. But like as of now, it's more or less just, hey, I don't really have any debuffs. Magician doesn't really have any debuffs. All of his debuffs have already gotten removed, right, for the past few patches. He doesn't really have any debuffs. He has 3 wands to use. You can pair him up with Flywheel or Knee-Jerk Reflex or even Tightener, however you see fit. And whenever you use an illusion, you use your wand, you gain a 50% movement speed boost for 1 second. Overall, not a bad trade-off in my books. It's just that if you take into consideration of all other characters there are out there in our survivor pool, he just isn't the best, but he's good enough for a newbie when he comes into play and just start playing rank because he's really easy to learn, or just if you're a casual Magician enjoyer, there's also that too, let's say. But aside from that, yes, Magician is solo ranking. Next will be Explorer. We're gonna move Explorer. Oh no, actually, Explorer was tie guarantee last season, so we're gonna maintain his stage for this season too. Explorer will still be a part of tie guarantee. He's not a bad character. He did get buffed. You get his pages way faster now compared to before, and he also has buffed. He has gotten his buff from the movement speed boost when he moves from a crouching state, standing still state, to a running state. Right, so that's overall not too bad. He will still maintain the same spot. He is able to get 3 pages, and he's able to basically shock open the cipher machines ASAP the moment he injects those pages in. So like, he's really good. He's a character that's really good for the type that's like, okay, so the hunter is near the prime cipher machine or near the cipher machine that's at 50%. All I need to do is to inject that 50% cipher machine, that 50% page / treasure that I have on my hands, and then run away ASAP. He's that type of character, which is fairly nice as well. Now, he does decode the same as a normal survivor. It takes a normal survivor 81 seconds to open up a cipher machine. It's also the same for the Explorer. Overall, no changes to that, right? So we're pretty happy with that as well. So like, for Explorer, it's more or less just saying, you know, he is able to decode early game by himself like a normal survivor, but as mid to late game comes on, he can just run around the map. Okay, first page takes 27 seconds to dig, that's 50%. Second page takes 24 seconds to dig, that's another 50%, and then the last page only takes 20 seconds to dig, that's another 50%. So he can get 150% treasure within 71 seconds, but then I guess you also need to take into consideration of the, you know, pathing that he has to choose, of the distance between each pages. So there is also that too that we need to keep in mind, right? But then like overall, what I would say is, if Hunter really wants to try to chase after Explorer, Explorer usually hides really well. So like, even if he doesn't hide well, he hides well. It's more than enough for a type if you sell him or something like that. But yes, overall, Explorer will still be, you know, in the same tier as last season. He doesn't have any debuffs. He's like a rescue, you know, he's like a container type, well, he's not a container type. He's like a decoder type rescuer. A lot of people run Explorer with Tie Turner because they just spawn at the most awkward area possible and start team pages. Meanwhile, the Hunter spawns somewhere else where the survivors are most likely to be in, right? So like that's kind of why some people prefer to play Explorer with Tie Turner, especially if they know how to hide as well. So there is that too. Explorer is type of, you know, decoder rescuer type character, but for now, still type of power tie guarantee. We'll be moving on towards the next. Next character will be Mercenary. Mercenary will still be a part of Kings and Queens regardless of what happens. Still a very top tier type of rescuer. Treble paths, being able to pull distance, having 8 seconds, well, yeah, having 8 seconds extra mini tie turn time for himself is going to bring him quite a long way around, especially when it gets to, you know, after rescuing and you don't have tie turner, at least you can run towards somewhere else a little bit further away from the chair compared to the usual. But Mercenary, his main highlights really is just being able to, you know, run towards the chair ASAP. And not to worry about anything at all, as in like he can be able to pull distance towards the chair if the hunter is going to come out to look for him, so it kind of forces the hunters to stay near the chair, or as Mercenary will get a no damage rescue, or even it's really just his containment also isn't bad as well if you know, just kind of forget about all the survivors that all the mercs that use your elbow pads immediately, 3 elbow pads immediately early game without using a single pallet and goes down in 60 seconds. That's a little bit of an oofus doofus. But aside from that, he works really well against chip characters when it comes to chase and when it comes to camp. He is overall like the only survivor that's able to tank a terror shock and stay alive for the next few seconds, whether it's after a chair camp or whether it's after a normal containment. Now, of course, if you were injured already before that chair camp, that's on you. You're going to go down immediately. But aside from that, he is the only survivor who's able to basically stay alive when he gets a terror shock, which is one of his pros. And one of the reasons why he's been chosen so much in tourneys, and one of the reasons why he's been chosen so much in rank as well. Just the overall, you know, good old memes, Merc Coder, you decode, you rescue, you decode, you rescue, there's just no in between. So yes, Merc will be a part of Kings and Queens. Next will be Priestess. Priestess is also going to follow up along here with Merc. Yes, Priestess did get her portal nerf, but once again, at the end of the day, Priestess's portals is mainly used for survivors to transition kite, not for survivors to get a stun. Right, the stun is there as an extra thing. The biggest thing, what we need to take into consideration is allow survivors to go towards the next nearest pallet/window and being able to utilize those pallets/windows, which is what we want, which is what we want to see happen, right? So like for Priestess overall, it's more or less just saying, hey, yes, you might have nerfed Priestess's portal stun duration by another 10%, but it's not that big of an issue for Priestess at all, because like she excels in almost every map. You could say Factory is kind of meh, but like Factory is still somewhat goated if you think about if the Priestess is precise enough with her portals. Factory is still pretty goated. And also for Priestess, she gives everyone a 10% healing speed boost. So there is also that as well. So like Priestess, if she brings Flywheel, she's able to, you know, self-heal really fast. And she's able to allow her own survivors to self-heal really fast. If the survivor has Sticker, which is, you know, if they go up towards the Flywheel part of the Persona tree and they have Sticker, they can basically heal really fast. Right, so even if you want to maybe try slug someone and the last Cypher machine is still there, and then you might have chased someone after a little bit too deep, and then they use up self-heal. Oof, you never know. You really never know what could happen in states like those. Priestess also has a land portal in which she's able to directly channel it towards a survivor globally, and the survivor will be able. Oh, that's such a weird accent. That's such a weird stutter. But the survivor will be able to respond on time and allow Priestess to connect the portals. It can be as far away as you want. So like this works really well. If let's say you're on a big map, the survivor just got rescued and then tie turn time just ended, but they made it through the portal, Priestess can heal that survivor really fast because A, she has their 10% heal buff, and B, the hunter's really far away. Unless the hunter has warp or teleport, I would say most of the time you would still be able to get the survivors up and running, right? Most of the times, unless in some oddball situation where you decide to decode but then you didn't finish popping up your Cypher machine and they teleported it right next to you, then you might be a little bit screwed. But overall for Priestess, not too bad. Honestly speaking, not too bad at all. Really good rebound type of character that allows survivors to rebound kite and allows herself to rebound kite, and you know, just a lot of other buffs as well. Her only debuff is 10% vaulting debuff, like Doctor Haughty, I'm quite sure. But aside from that, still a part of Kings and Queens. Next will be Cordy. Cordy in rank is... I'm going to move Cordy... I'm going to move Cordy up. I'll be realistic. I'm going to move Cordy up for... Actually, no, in rank she's not. In rank she's a solo ranker. Lol. Cordy will still be a part of solo ranker. So Cordy will still be a part of solo ranker. She's not a bad character. I definitely would have put her in versatile considering the current hunter meta as of now as well. But now that I think about it, we recently just got some other rescuers buffed as well. So I do need to take those guys into consideration as well. And we really want to rank the rescuers like that. Cordy is kind of below the rest. She is not a bad character to use. She doesn't have any decoding debuff aside from the fact that when someone gets on chair, that's when her 25% decoding debuff comes in. But she decodes like an average survivor early game. So like if a survivor contains a good 60-70 seconds, Cordy most of the time is going to be able to get her cipher machine at around 75 to 85%, right? Compared to the average rescuer where it's like 55 to 65%. So that's kind of one of the benefits of Coordinator. And you also need to take into consideration that her debuff doesn't actually come in until the survivor gets chaired. So even if survivor goes down right after a blink, if chair time takes them 10 extra seconds, you basically decode at normal speed for 10 extra seconds. For Cordy, she's pretty good of a solo ranker because A, she does not need to bring tie turners. She can bring knee-jerk reflex or flywheel since she has a gun that can be used as a mini tie turner for the survivors. And B, it's more or less just Cordy has inbuilt move and speed boost alongside with vault boost. Cordy doesn't really have any Cordy doesn't really have any decoding debuffs unless someone's on the chair. And look, if you're going to sell the survivor, yes, Cordy's going to suffer from that decoding debuff a lot. But most of the times you won't really be selling, especially from mid to high tier onwards. You probably would maybe say, hey, I'll go rescue once, give my gun, and see how it goes afterwards. If they can't kite, then yes, I will sell. But then if they do kite, then it's kind of a surplus for you. But like, you might think, hey, this is kind of 50-50. I lose my gun and I decode slow. But realistically speaking, it's not a 50-50. It's more or less just saying you slightly get the advantage sometimes. You do slightly still get the advantage. Why? Reason number one, you can immediately go to a cipher machine and start decoding if you don't want to go back to your own. Or let's say if you're in a team and then you tell your teammates where a cipher machine is, that's fine, you can just stay nearby. Or B, you can try perform a no damage rescue by hitting the hunter first and then performing the rescue and then getting away. And look, right, if the survivor really isn't able to rebound kite, you could try going for the second rescue just to buy a little bit more time for yourself and for your teammates to decode, while maybe you try body block, or maybe you just try waste a little bit more of the hunter's time. But yes, not having an item is kind of scary, which is why usually it's kind of, you know, recommended for Coordinator to open a chest right after she uses her gun. But there is quite a lot to, you know, take into consideration when it comes to different hunters, different strategies, such and such. So yeah, Coordinator is overall a really good solo ranker type of survivor to use in rank. I recommend people using her. She's overall great, not that much debuff aside from a decoding debuff. Her containment is absolutely brilliant too. And yeah, that is dash for Coordinator. Afterwards, we have Mechanic. Dun 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 dun. We're gonna put Mech very high. But Mech, after her buff, I won't lie, surprised me quite a lot in A, how much she's being used, and B, how fast she actually decodes when she gets a lot of benefit. So let's just talk about Mech, and this will be quite a long talk compared to the other characters because Mech did get quite a drastic move from solo ranker to basically meta type characters. So why is Mech on top of top? If mechanics, let's say if you play with a 4-man team and your survivor does really well and contain really good early game, by technicality you're able to decode 2 cipher machines at full speed if you decide to deploy the doll down. Even if you don't decide to deploy the doll down, what you can do is you can decode 1 cipher machine by yourself, right? And then when the survivor gets hit, you can deploy the doll and then run away, meanwhile decoding the cipher machine with your doll. So if you think about it, if your survivor does good, I can just decode one myself, and then I can drop doll down and then use the doll. Meanwhile, I transition to another cipher machine. By the time, let's say your cipher machine was initially at 50%, and then you drop it down and decode. By the time you reach the next cipher, your doll cipher is probably around 75% during the time you're moving to, right? So then, like, okay, by the time I move over to my next cipher machine, my doll cipher machine is at 75, my cipher machine is maybe at like 25, and then by the time the doll cipher machine is finished, your cipher machine is at 30%, and then you can move your doll towards your own second cipher machine, and then like you can double decode it to finish it ASAP. Now you might be thinking, hey Kudo, why are we doing this early game? Why don't you just deploy the doll down and run? For me, it's more or less of, okay, if I'm not in a 4-man team, I'm just going to take advantage of the cipher machine, of my decoding speed boost, because I can. I decode 10% faster when I decode 10% faster, which is built in, and I get a 25% decoding debuff when someone gets injured. If you plus the 10%, she only gets a 15% decoding debuff. So overall, it's not too bad for a mech if someone really gets injured, right? 15% isn't too bad. It's like a Gravekeeper decoding. But if you decide to move your doll initially gets a 15% decoding debuff unless you're controlling the doll. So like if you leave the doll, this doll has a 16% decoding debuff and you're moving towards the next cipher machine. For me, I prefer option 1 more, and your doll stays for much longer as well, right? And like if you can reap the benefits of your own decoding speed early game, that's kind of my general plan. And I also do this as well because if I'm being chased, at least I can use the doll as a body blocker type of mechanism and be able to contain for a little bit longer. So that's kind of my top process. That's kind of how I play mechanic. But of course, once someone gets hit, then you know, okay, I'm not being chased. I can drop my doll down and run. Not only that, usually if you're able to finish off 2 cipher machines by yourself at a pretty fast pace, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Because if you think about it this way, right? Okay, you decode a cipher machine at 50%, and then you drop your doll down. You use the doll to decode your own cipher as you move out towards the nurse cipher, while your survivor just got hit and is injured. If you think about it this way, you move your doll towards your own around 30% cipher machine. You can use that doll to decode your 30% cipher machine while you run towards your rescuer's cipher to decode that 70% cipher machine. Like, you are simultaneously decoding 2 ciphers at once when someone gets injured, and you're fully taking in your benefits when no one is injured. So like, if you think about it, realistically speaking, you can get a rescuer to rescue twice if he's capable of doing so. Meanwhile, the other survivor can just decode the second cipher machine by himself or herself while the rescuer is trying to do all the job. And not only that, Mech's doll stays alive for way longer now because the consumption has been dropped down significantly, which is, honestly speaking, pretty darn good. Right? Yeah, she may have a little bit of a extra, she may have a 16% decoding debuff on the doll, but look, if it stays on for longer, that's pretty good. Why? You can use it to heal someone, you can use it to, you know, like get towards the exit gate, you can use it for longer throughout the game, and it does kind of suit the harasser meta quite well, because we want to see a little bit more harasser meta in tourneys as well, right? Which is why I can see what NetEase is trying to do. They're trying to maybe get Antiquarian harasser, get Gravekeeper harasser, get like these body block type of characters coming through as well, just to, you know, make things more interesting than, you know, just slapping the hunter. Right, so like that's kind of where I am currently getting at, my own predictions from NetEase. But look, overall it kind of is just, hey, Mech is, honestly speaking, a good character. I don't think you can actually sleep on her. She is really good. Even if your teammates does do bad, you still can decode two cipher machines simultaneously, which overall still guarantees you the tie. But the higher you go in rank, the less chance of it there being your survivors, you know, messing up really badly, like getting a hit 20 seconds in towards the game when it just started. It's really rare for that to happen the higher you go, unless it is. But I don't think it is. If we think about it statistically speaking, I don't think it is. Now, you can still drop down your doll, decode, and run towards another cipher machine. That is also fine too. Unless you're in a 4-man team, you can definitely do that. But if you're not in a 4-man team, like, I just be a little bit question marky. Why? Because sometimes it's like, okay, now you have 15% decoding debuff on yourself and on the doll, and then you just started to get towards a new cipher machine. I already have that, and you already have that debuff. So for me, it's really not worth it, which is why I decode with the main body first instead of deploying doll down and saving the doll just in case I get chased, so I can use it as a body block mechanism, right? But overall, everyone has different type of play styles. Regardless of what play style you use, if you're able to decode 2 cipher machines simultaneously in 110 seconds, that's still faster than decoding 2 cipher machines separately, right? So yeah, there's that. Mech is still a part. Mech is gonna move up to Kings and Queens right after her buff. Okay, let's move on towards the next one. Forward will be okay, move forward, back up the Kings and Queens now. His buff is only a 5% reduction on the decoding debuff. I know that a lot of people might disagree with me. Maybe a lot of people think that he should be moving down one tier list, but just hear me out first, and then we can probably talk about this now in the comment section. But my reason for forward being Kings and Queens right now, 2 majority reasons. Reason number 1, Opera Singer has been nerfed quite hard to the point that I think anyone can Kai Opera Singer, right? Her dash speed has been decreased by 12%. Now, of course, unless in tourneys they're still able to get 4Ks, then I'd be like, okay, maybe I have to reevaluate my opinions here a little bit. But for now, an average Joe in rank or an average Emma in rank should be able to pretty well decently kite an Opera Singer, unless they start rotating really bad. Then that's kind of your own fault by that point. I won't lie to you about that. But overall, for all after, like, you know, Opera and Ivy's nerf, there was also Goatman's nerfs as well. Hula Blue probably will get another nerf sooner or later. But what I probably would say is that, you know, for the likes of Forward right now, if Goman decides to place down a trap, then Forward can break it then Forward can break it and then maybe come in and harass. But then, like, even so, for Forward, it's like, okay, now you basically wasted 40 energy stacks for you to get a trap placed just for me to not come in to harass. That more or less is a win. Not only that, for Forward, he also does really well against Goldman if he's harassing internally too, because he can just stun the survivor and waste like a good 10 seconds during that time as well. And as a body block type of potential, and even so, he can just break the cage from the inner sides too. So for Forward against Goldman, right, if you're mid-kite harassing, that's kind of what we are mainly aiming for as of now. Not only that, I say Forward's biggest counter is still only Ivy. I would say Forward's biggest counter is still only Ivy. I will not really say Hula Boo is one of them. Now, yes, Hula Boo, if he places a, you know, double surprise with a red mark on you, your ball gets basically cancelled. But you can't really do that during when, you know, the Hula Blue is chasing after someone else, or when the Hula Blue basically is trying to pick up a survivor from balloon or something. But overall, from what I would probably say is, like, that 5% decoding debuff reduction might not seem much. Like, his decoding debuff went down from 30% to 25%, but that's still basically saying, okay, now I can decode faster, which means I can get towards my survivors faster. Right? So, like, for Forward's point of view, for everyone, it might be something like, oh no, it's only a 5% decoding speed reduction. But then think about Mech. Mech also had a Mech's doll just got increased by a tiny bit, but she's apparently meta now. I'm quite sure her decoding speed also increased. Oh yeah, her decoding debuff also got reduced by quite a lot. But like, she's meta now. For Forward, it kind of is the same thing. Especially in rank now, you're able to ban 2 characters in Griffin, 3 characters in tier 7, so Dragon and above. Overall, you can get rid of, you know, Hula Blue, you can get rid of Goman if you want to, and you can get rid of Ivy. So then, like, at the end of the day, still not too much characters that actually can counter you. Even if there does exist characters that counter you, most of the times you as Forward will be in flywheel. The moment you flywheel their basic hit, they will jump back or dash back immediately towards their survivor that they want to chair. For you, you might say, but hey, I want to harass. But honestly, by that point, you've wasted a good 10 to 15 seconds and an extra ability of the Hunter, right, for the survivors to decode. So not only have you not used your body, you've also wasted the hunter's time, especially if it's dash type of characters. If they're slow moving type of characters, then more or less of the times you would be able to harass pretty darn well. It's not only that as well. Most of the time forward main, what they do is they perform the rescue after they get hit, and then they start putting a really long ball as if it was a coordinator stun, right? Which is why I most of the times would say, hey, look, more or less you're going to be fine. More or less you're going to be fine. If Cordy is solo ranker, you as a forward, you're definitely way higher than that. Now I definitely know that there's going to be difference of opinions when it comes to forward being a part of versatile or kings and queens, but for now, because of the hunter meta changes, I'm moving him up. Because of his decoding debuff reduction, I'm also moving him up, and he is still one of those best harassers out there in the game as of now. So that's that for forward. To move on to TME. I'm going to move TME fairly far down to skill dependent now. Last season she was tie guaranteed. This time I'm going to move her down to skill dependent for a few of the majority reasons. So overall for TME, the reason why we move her down is because of meta changes as well. You need to think about opera singers, I think. You need to think about Ivy, you need to think about Goatman, and you need to think about Hullabaloo. Now, it might be very unfair to say that, oh look, these 4 hunters, not everyone play him, but at the same time, it is the fact that most of the hunters will play him the higher you go up in the tier, especially when you don't ban a certain one out, the other one definitely would come out. For TME to go up against any of these top 4, you need to take into consideration they all have high movement speed. You need to take into consideration that you can't necessarily hide away from them. You also need to take into consideration that they all can bring peepers. Ivy can bring peepers if she really wants to, but Ivy doesn't really need to because her phantom moves fast and she can spot you out immediately and leech on towards you. Ivy can definitely bring peepers because you vault slow, so why not double stack up the slow. There's also Goatman as well, who can just immediately use a gate to get straight towards a really strong containment area you're in and then place down peepers to see where you are. And of course, there's Hullabaloo, just about the same thing, honestly. You see a lot of Hullabaloo mains playing with peepers too. Now, TME is moving down, even though she hasn't gotten a buff nor a nerf. Those are kind of the genuine reasons. Now, you also might say, but hey, what if there are other characters being played aside from those 4? In which I will say, sure. You know what? Sure, it's still definitely a part of tie guarantee in that case. But, you know, unless one of these characters get nerfed to the ground, right? Unless one of these characters get nerfed to the ground, I would say it is still pretty hard for you to be able to actually get much value off, you know, playing TME. Now, I'm not saying TME is bad, I'm just saying that you need to play quite a lot of games as TME to A, get used of her pallet dropping speed, B, to get used of hiding, and of course, C, to get used of containing and playing around with your basically with your mini map hack, let's say, compared to Lawyer who has a full map hack, you have a mini one, right? So overall for TME, it kind of is just like, you will always have the lower hand when it comes to certain matchups, but if you play well, you can definitely do really well. But then like that also applies for most survivors too. But you know what, I guess at the end of the day, we do have to move her down because of the hunter meta changes. Will be Perfumer. Perfumer is going to be a part of versatile regardless of what happens. Yes, Perfumer gets countered by the likes of Ivy, by the likes of Opera Singer. Well, not Opera Singer, by the likes of Ivy, by the likes of chip hunters like Gala and Bomb Bomb. But overall, Gala and Bomb Bomb aren't really meta characters anymore, and if you really do see them being played out, you could focus on dodging chips and then giving normal hits instead. Something like that. Overall for Perfumer, she's still going to remain the same tier as she was before. There's not really that much big changes. She has 3 perfumes, she has no decoding debuff. The only thing she has is a Cypher Machine debuff, if I'm not wrong. When she fails a calibration, her reduced Cypher Machine decoding progress goes down 3 times as much as normal survivors. So there is also that too. But of course, with all things in mind, you need to take into consideration as well. It's just that she's a little bit harder to play compared to Magician, right? She is a lot harder to play compared to Magician. So what I would say overall for you is you know, you need to be able to get used to the perfumes first, but once you can instant perfume, you can always guarantee a 60, well, you can always guarantee a 60-second kite, you can always almost guarantee a 90-second kite or so. So that Perfumer is still going to be, you know, versatile regardless. Now, next will be Cowboy. Cowboy will be a part of solo ranker. We're going to move him down from versatile as well, for quite a number of reasons actually. Reason number one is because there are better products of him, such as Weeping Clown, such as Fire Investigator, such as Cheerleader. But you might say, but hey, Kudo, Cowboy is more harass focused, in which I will say yes, but in the current day meta, we are a little bit more focused on support. In which what I mean is, you know, such a likes as giving items to survivors for them to be able to contain well, for the likes of, you know, how else would you say, for the likes of cipher rushing so that you don't stay near the survivor for too long. And I also do think it's because of the fact that, like, you know, chase characters are an issue for Cowboy. So like, even if you do manage to actually get the lasso on towards the survivor, the hunter is going to be able to catch you up pretty fast if they find you out of position. And the moment you use that lasso to get away from the hunter, then you're 10 seconds down before you can actually do anything else. Right, so that is a small issue compared to forward. If he pulls the ball, that's fine because it's on only a 5-second cooldown, right? But then if it's Cowboy, it's a 10-second cooldown. It's twice as long as Cowboy's as long as forward's duration. So like, for Cowboy, he needs to be very precise in his distance control. He needs to be very precise in whether or not he wants to take the hit or not, and he needs to be very precise in his skill, in his positioning when it comes to harassing for balloon rescues. Now, I would say that he's not gonna go any lower than a solo ranker because A, he has really good containment abilities, such as being able to lasso pallets and lasso cipher machines to get away from the hunter, to be able to lasso the hunter and then get a movement speed boost to avoid a hit from the hunter. And of course, balloon harass is also a huge potential as well if you are in a 4-man team. But I guess it's also I guess we also move him down because there's just better products of him. Like nowadays, you see Fire Investigator being played a lot, you see Weeping Clown being played a lot. You don't see Antiquarian as much, but Antiquarian is still a better version of Cowboy in a sense, even though she is close range, same as forward, same as, you know, the likes of even Knight, I would dare to say sometimes. But even so, forward overall, no, sorry, not forward, Cowboy overall right now should be pretty darn still decent as a solo ranker. If you're not playing with a team, he's good. If you're playing with a team, even better. Okay, next will be Female Dancer. Female Dancer would be a part of Versatile. Female Dancer is still a really good character at the end of the day. She has nice enough containability and nice enough supportability. Especially for the likes of Female Dancer, her slow music box does help out the survivors quite a lot when it comes to slowing the hunters down and allowing you to pull a little bit more distance away from the hunter. And of course, the fast music box just for overall decoding speed, vaulting speed, and of course dodging chips and so on. Overall, from what I would say about Female Dancer, not only is her support really good, it's also the fact that her containment goes hand in hand. Female Dancer works really well in 2-story areas, in which she gains a movement speed boost after dropping down from a height, regardless of how high it actually is. So that simply just means that most Female Dancers can play Flywheel if they are, you know, playing in 2-story area, playing in maps that have 2 stories. They are really big and have 2 stories, such as Moonlit, Leo's, Hospital, Dark Woods, Ever Sleeping Town, Chinatown, I guess the majority of the maps except for, you know, Arms Factory and Church. But aside from that, Female Dancer, she doesn't really have any innate debuff as well, which is something we need to take into consideration too. Her long distance support works really well in basically really good containment areas such as Hospital, Runes Inn, Sacred Hearts Hospital, Ever Sleeping Town, almost anywhere works. Same as, you know, Chinatown, same as Moonlit. Well, maybe not the same as Moonlit. Maybe Moonlit, we need to think about it a little bit more. But God Kite in Moonlit and 2-story in Moonlit, definitely really good. And of course, Female Dancer is able to ballet within her own music boxes to be able to get away from the hunter. Overall, she doesn't really have any decoding debuff. She does have an innate drop down speed boost in which she can play Flywheel along with, and of course you do see sometimes Female Dancer mains play Flywheel. I mean, it does work out well if you want to tie kite certain hunters, but then some hunters you just cannot tie kite, such as the like of Nayad, such as the likes of you know, Ivy. But aside from that, still definitely top of the top for female dancer right now. There is going to be no changeover, and we'll move on towards the next. Okay, the next will be Seer. Seer's still on top of the top. Yeah, Seer did get nerfed, but Seer's nerf didn't really matter too much to him because his only nerfs were A, when the hunter, whether or not the hunter hits its owl or not, he will gain his decoding debuff and a vaulting debuff. Now, the decoding debuff has just been added in as a slice of a, you know, the decoding debuff has just been added in just because, I guess. But overall, it doesn't really matter too much because we need to think about it, right? Barmaid also has the same thing when she drinks her Wildling. Seer overall, his main quality is to prolong the kite as much as possible, and especially when you're in a higher tier team and you're able to use the owl to, you know, block the hit and further increase the containment time. That's kind of what you need. So that 5% decoding debuff doesn't really matter as much as you think it would if you can get your accelerated decoding out. Not only that, right, you also need to think about it this way. It's now max capped at 3. So it's not max capped at 5 anymore, it's max capped at 3. So at most right now, Seer can only get a 30% decoding debuff. Not decoding debuff, vaulting debuff, and 15% decoding debuff. Not only that, I do simply believe that this simply just forces the hunter to not chase after Seer, because if you do decide to chase after Seer, that decoding debuff doesn't really matter as much as you think it would. And especially in a good high tier team or in a good 4-man team, you would usually play pretty good meta characters in order to, you know, prolong the kite as much as possible. Not only that, for Seer, I don't think there's really much to say about it from that point of view, because that was his only nerf slash buff. Well, he didn't really get buffed. Well, you could see as a different way of getting buffed, but that was his main nerf. I don't think that 5% is going to matter much unless you're going to farm a lot of owls and get a 15% decoding debuff, but even so, being able to prolong the kite, that's what matters the most in our games. Now, if you are really worried about that 5% decoding debuff, what you could do is you could just not use the owl and help it to use it for a rebound kite, or you can become the second rescuer and basically say, hey, I'll go into rescue, you guys please decode, even though you only have a 5% decoding debuff compared to a rescuer who has, like, you know, a 25% decoding debuff. But overall, you should be fine. You know, you should be fine as Seer. That 5% decoding debuff on this Seer isn't going to matter as much as you think it would if, you know, you think about what he does. He prolongs the kite. If he prolongs the kite, then sure, look, 5% is 5%. Like, what can we do? What can we do? And of course, the Seer's owl is still pretty regenerative as well. So there is that. Next will be Embalmer. Embalmer is 100% of the tie guarantee type of characters. He will remain here regardless of what happens. I will not be moving him up to solo ranker, especially in rank. This is a rank tier list. I know in tourney could have been better, but in rank, I would say, you know, stuff happens. But as long as those stuff happens, it's always almost going to be tie guarantee. For Embalmer overall, there's no changes. He can deploy a coffin down early game, so he can self-resurrect himself, so the survivors can keep, you know, Cypher Rush until 3 Cypher machines are done before he gets on the chair for the second time. And then you can sell, and then Hunter basically can't do much aside from that because they're only presence 1. For Embalmer, playing Embalmer means it gives yourself room for error. It allows yourself to make mistakes and your teammates will not blame you. If they blame you and they say, hey, you've only cut it like 20-30 seconds and then we haven't gotten 3 Cypher machines done yet by the time that you went down, I think that's a decoding issue or a mispatting issue. Like, you didn't get towards the Cypher machine fast enough type of issue. I will not lie to you. Because usually overall, right, worst case scenario is by the time Embalmer gets eliminated, you would, and I mean this, you would have 3 Cypher machines done. And the Hunter is also not max present, so the Hunter is still kiteable to a certain extent. Right, unless you have another weak character on your team, then okay, I guess fair enough. But usually, you don't see the likes of Dr. Lucky Guy, Thief Gardener in your matchup. Right, so you don't see them that often. So, like, it's really hard for a team with Embalmer to mess up the tie unless the Hunter starts playing really aggressively and then catching your team off guard and your team starts making a lot of mistakes. But overall, if you just play regularly, you know, if the Hunter chases after Embalmer goes down in 30-40 seconds, self-resurrects, runs away, Like, even just catching up to the Embalmer takes time because he runs away from his coffin too. So you also need to take that into consideration, right, from the hunter's point of view. Unless the hunter has warp, then fair enough. But now at least you know, okay, the hunter does not have blink. I don't need to predict blink. He also doesn't have warp, so he actually needs to walk to catch up to us right now. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? So like, Embalmer is a really good third trade consumable character from the hunter's point of view, and it's just basically tie guarantee can get 3 cipher machines done by the time that he actually gets eliminated. But usually you could get it done before he gets eliminated. That's kind of how it works in higher ranks. But overall, Embalmer still tie guarantee, no movement up or down. Prospector is pretty versatile as well. I won't lie, I'll probably put Prospector ahead of both Female Dancer and Perfumer. Prospector didn't really change much, if we're going to be fully honest with ourselves. Prospector is still about just the same. Yes, 2 patches ago, his magnets did get nerfed. His magnet regeneration time is being increased to 70 seconds now, I think. But like, in exchange for that, I think he now gets 2/3 of his magnets early game. So I guess he still does get 2 magnets for the first containment, which is overall good enough. Prospector also has his innate skill in which when he runs towards a metallic object, i.e. a cipher or a locker, he will get pulled to it, as in he will gain a movement speed boost for I think 5 seconds, for 50% for 5 seconds. So like, that should be able to allow you to traverse across the map or traverse across certain terrains in case you don't have knee-jerk reflex. And of course, Prospector mainly brings flywheel. Overall for Prospector, there's not too much change off him. He doesn't really have that many debuffs. He has a healing buff, and he also has a metallic object buffing, which allows him to gain movement speed boost. He is a fairly nice harasser to use. He's able to, you know, buy some time for survivors to maybe rotate away, or even just to pull the hunter back to prevent the hunter from getting the hit on towards the survivor. Now, of course, for Prospector, he does have his issues as well, such as not being able to, you know, counter certain stun hunters like Hermit, like Wax Artist, for them being able to get a hit and immediately reset attack recovery in case, and I mean this, in case they time it really well and then they hit and then you push them back and then they can just immediately land hit on you again. That is a slight bit of an issue. But honestly, aside from that, Prospector is a really good character. There's only like 2 characters that really counter him in this game, Wax Artist and, you know, Wax Artist and Hermit because of their stuns. But aside from that, they are still pretty darn decent. Well, Prospector is still pretty darn decent, so he does deserve to stay still stay there at the end of the day. Next will be Enchantress. I think I had Ench at solo ranker for a while. I think we will now fully move her down to skill dependence. She does take quite a lot of skill, especially with the fact that well, I wouldn't say she's skill dependent if you can just start spamming curses, but I do think what matters the most is how you kite early game to prevent the hunter from gaining a lot of stacks is what also matters as well. Because Ench initially early game does not have any items. That's what we have to take into consideration, right? She does not have any items. So what that simply means is you need to kite without an item, especially against characters like Wax Artist, against characters like Hermit, against fast moving characters, against any hunter overall that are not slow. It does, like, it's fairly easy to land a hit on towards Ench. It is fairly easy to land a hit on towards Ench compared to, you know, maybe if you say like slow moving characters like Embalmer. But overall, like, in our current day meta, look, we know who the top 4 contenders is. We know Ivy, Opera, Goldman, and Hula Blue. It's gonna be quite hard for Ench to actually be played that much in rank as well. Now, I do play her for fun. And I do play characters that don't have items too often, but she is pretty skill dependent, and we do have to move her down as well because of the hunter meta changes, and because we're moving towards a more of a, you know, body block type of potential in rank and in tourney metas. So there is also that too. But yeah, Entry will be a part of skill dependent. She has her curses. She only has a healing debuff, and when she heals someone and they get hit, she can get a stack of curse. But aside from that, not much that you can do off her. Now then, next will be Wildling. Wildling, we can move him up around here, right between Lawyer and Cowboy. Wildling is a pretty decent rescuer when it comes to preventing stuff rescues, when it comes to preventing, like, you know, bombs, when it comes to preventing, like, wax artists to be double stack. Well, wax artists can actually still double stack you, never mind. But he is the type of character that can pull towards the chair ASAP, right? And that's kind of what we want to see. Wildling is like a mercenary, except for the fact that he can get on the board and then gain movement speed boost instead of Merc who dashes away. Wildling is the type of character that allows himself to body block for survivors, allows himself to harass against certain hunters, but of course Mischievous does kind of counter, so that's a oofus doofus on our side. But everything aside from that, Wildling is an overall pretty darn good character. For me, right, if we simply just think about it, Wildling, he did get a decoding debuff reduction of 5% from 30 to 25%, but overall his main style is rescue. He's just this type of, you know, guaranteed rescue type character, and he's just this type of character in which if the hunter actually decides to chase after you, you can just get on board and run away, and there's nothing that the hunter can do to even catch up towards you, right? So like overall for Wildling, really good character to using Solar Anchor if you just want to decode and do normal rescues and not to be first chase. So yeah, that's that for Wildling. Next on the list will be Acrobat. Acrobat will still be pretty versatile regardless of what happens. He's still going to remain the same in his tier for the past I don't know how many seasons we've been doing this, right? Acrobat will be just Acrobat at the end of the day. 3 balls, being able to get a 4th or the 5th one depending on the location of where he's in. He's able to get 5 balls if he decodes 150% Cypher Machine, not being first chase, and immediately go for the rescue afterwards. He can also get a 6 ball if he gets chased, so that's how you get your red, white, and mud ball. We really won't say much about Acrobat because he hasn't gotten any adjustments yet, right? So like there is really not much I can say. I went fully in depth with a lot of characters for the last tier list. This one I think will just make it fairly fast for everyone and put the highlights, right? Put the highlights on Seer, Priestess, or on the ones that has changed quite a lot. But yes, that is that for Acrobat. 3 balls, be able to kite 60-second guarantees. Moving on next. First Officer also is a part of Versatile. He'll be very high on the list when it comes to rescue capabilities, but I also do think that he's high because he's been used quite a lot in rank and in tourneys. Yes, it's a little bit unfair to say anything about tourneys because this is a ranked tier list, but even so, I would say that a lot of people would prefer to play First Officer because of his pocket watches being able to give 7% decoding buff right after just using 1. First Officer initially has 20% decoding debuff if I'm not wrong, so getting that 7% extra decoding buff right after the first rescue is pretty darn decent. Not only that, First Officer is able to perform a rescue even at half health, very similar to Mercenary, but that's in exchange of one of his hypnosis watches, one of his pocket watches, right? So we just have a lot to take into consideration really at the end of the day. First Officer being able to get a 14% increase when he uses 2 of his pocket watches when it comes to decoding. He basically doesn't have any decoding debuff by the time that accelerated decoding has started. So like that's one of the reasons why he's strong, and another reason why he's strong is because if the hunter decides to force you to rescue, you can pop open that pocket watch, gain a 10% movement speed boost, and you know you can waste 30 seconds of hunter's time just by doing that because you can activate the pocket watch 3 times. So even if the hunter finds you early, you can waste time and force the survivor to stay on chair before you actually go in for the rescue. Now of course the con of First Officer is he is not able to tank a terror shock, but aside from that, pretty darn good character overall. Right then, afterward it will be Barmaid. Barmaid also pretty versatile of a character, also pretty decent of a character, being able to give dove lanes towards her survivors and in allowing her survivors to heal for 18 seconds without actually, you know, healing the survivor, if you know what I mean. This simply just allows Barmaid to keep decoding and another survivor to keep decoding as well to maintain that decoding speed boost. But of course, yes, when you drink the Doveling, you will get a 5% decoding debuff, very similar to Seer, but you don't waste time, which is kind of the benefit of that. If Barmaid gets first chase, usually she can drink her Doveling, and then if Barmaid gets first chase, if she gets a hit, she can drink her Doveling and then immediately use a speed Doveling to get away and stack it up with some knee-jerk reflex or even with some on flywheel, and you should be able to contain for 18 seconds, right, without a problem. Overall for Barmaid, not too much changes to her kit. I think she has been fully buffed, and she will not be buffed nor nerfed ever again. She still stays pretty much on top of quite a lot of other characters because of her triple hit capabilities, and of course being able to give survivors a Dublin just to keep moving, keep the action going throughout the map. Overall, she pairs really up with rescuers like Merc and Forward if they need a Dublin or if they need to be healed. You can't just give them the Dublin and then they can run straight back towards the survivor to provide them assistance or provide tinnitus for their rescue. Overall, Barmaid hasn't changed much. She still remains versatile. We won't go in depth. We'll leave that for next season when things change maybe. But for now, still very versatile character. Okie dokie, next one will be Postman. We will move Postman up to... You know what, I'll be fairly honest with you. I think Postman is one of those characters that you can solo play in rank, and you can most likely do pretty well as well because of his soft support. Postman did get a buff 2 seasons ago in which it allows him to, generally speaking, be able to stun the hunter with his dog, and then to slow the hunter down right afterwards as well. Yes, Postman's dog is pretty hard to land, but even so, Postman mainly focuses on his support ability, in which it comes from his letters. So he has 6 letters. He has a decoding speed letter, a movement speed letter, a vaulting speed letter, and then a knee-jerk reflex letter alongside with dungeon letter and a rescue letter. Overall, along these 6 letters, you can rotate around them, right? It gives you 3 options each time, and then you can send it to the survivors, but usually you get one like 10% decoding speed buff towards another survivor early game ASAP. For Postman, he is pretty much decent solo ranker. It's because I still take his decoding speed buff into account, right? Being able to give a survivor 10% decoding speed buff for 30 seconds it's good. It's good. Previously it was 20%, now it's 10%, so we basically half of the effects, but it's still good. You know, it's better than nothing. Not only that, for Postman, he is this type of really good character because you can just run flywheel on Postman and then give yourself a knee-jerk reflex, letter, and to be able to maybe stack it alongside with your flywheel, or even you can just run knee-jerk reflex alongside with another knee-jerk reflex letter, so you can triple stack your speed boost as much as you can to run away from the hunter. Overall, most of the time, Postmans, what they do is they throw their dog out in between tight corners, just so like if hunter actually walks through, you can stun them. If they don't walk through and they wait, you basically buy more time for yourself to rotate towards the next containment area. I'm quite sure I put him in the same ranking last season, didn't I? Or maybe I put him a little bit lower last season, but I do think I'm gonna move him a tiny bit up higher because of the fact that, you know, now it's all about decoding speed. I'm quite sure after the mech buff, mech decoding speed being able to be increased, after, you know, like Forwards decoding debuff being reduced, giving a 10% letter to Forward is pretty darn decent. Only a 15% decoding debuff for 30 seconds is, honestly speaking, quite nice if we just think about it as well. But overall, for Postman, right, a pretty weak character when it comes to containment, but very solid support type of survivor as well. Okay, next on the tier list will be Gravekeeper. Gravekeeper overall, after his buff, he is still versatile. Maybe he was solo ranking last season. I don't really remember too well, apologies on that. But this season, he's still about the same, I won't lie. He is still about the same. Gravekeeper is still pretty versatile. Even after his buff, being able to push the hunter back right after he gets out of shovel, depending on which shovel mode you use, and being able to dash straight towards a pallet or a chair to immediately perform the rescue. He's still pretty darn good. Like, if he's solo ranker last season, he's versatile this season 100%. But if he's low versatile last season, he's basically high versatile this season because of so many of the rescuers buff. It seems like from NetEase's point of view, right, what we're trying to do here is we are trying to buff the rescuers as much as we can to guarantee the rescue. Maybe this is to counter Ivy, maybe this is to counter Hulaboo, I don't really know. But for the time being, it does seem like a lot of the rescuers now are getting buffed. Maybe you want to push Bonbon and Gala fully out of meta. You never really know. But even so, as of now, Gravekeeper is at a really good spot in which A, he's able to contain, and B, he's able to dash straight towards a palish that has been dropped down, I'm quite sure, or a chair, which simply just allows him to rotate across the map whenever he really wants to, right? And like, it just gives him more mobility, it gives him more of a chance to body block for his survivors, it just gives him so much more type of potential that you didn't think it would actually be there. So overall for Gravekeeper, I actually don't think you can stuff rescues anymore. I also think that you need to hit the Gravekeeper no matter what, or else he's going to push you back and then he's going to perform no damage rescue. Why? Because he has a 50% rescue buff, and if you take into the hands of, you know, the Persona tree, if you go down Titan, you gain a 20% rescue buff. Look, that's a 70% rescue buff. That means it only takes 0.3 seconds to rescue. That is really, really, really fast. And the average human reaction time is 150 ms, so 0.15 seconds. And the average hunter attack animation is 0.3 seconds. So like, if you think about it, Gravekeeper is always almost going to be able to guarantee a rescue unless the hunter predicts beforehand that the Gravekeeper is actually going to rescue. And this 50% buff lasts for 5 seconds, so good luck with trying to play around with a GK for 5 seconds, lol. But aside from that, very, very, very solid character. And next will be Prisoner. Prisoner will be a part of Versatile. We're gonna put Prisoner around here. Oh, you know, we're gonna put Prisoner behind Female Dancer. Prisoner is gonna move up from Solo Ranker to Versatile now for a number of reasons, actually. Reason number one, Prisoner works really well with a lot of survivors in our current high tier list as of now. Prisoner works well with Mechanic. Prisoner works well with Forward, being able to push open a Cipher Machine. Prisoner works well with all the other rescuers as well that has been moved up pretty high in towards our tier list. And Prisoner, basically, we all know you can push Cipher Machines from very far away. You can stay in one location and basically do whatever the heck you need to do without moving away, right? So like, Prisoner is a really, really, really good character now because of other character adjustments. Prisoner is able to, you know, it's just being able to do so much, honestly. Like, there's nothing much we can say. He's solid containment because he has no debuffs when it comes to vaulting. He does have a heartbeat debuff in which he's not able to hear the hunter or even get the heartbeat when the hunter is near the survivor. The hunter kind of have to be a little bit more closely towards the prisoner in order for you to be able to get that heartbeat. But aside from that, he just really, really, really suits current day meta with the Forward and with the mech, alongside with all the other meta characters that are on our tier list as well, which is why we're moving him up quite a lot. Because like, if you see a Prisoner and a Mechanic on a team, it's always a guaranteed tie. If you see a Prisoner, Forward, and Mechanic on the team, good luck getting that tie if the Forward actually comes and harasses really well. So there's just a lot for the Hunter now to take into consideration when it comes to Cypher Rush, because it definitely is coming back, especially when Forward is back. The harass capability is going to be insane. So yeah, Prisoner's about a part of Versatile. Entomologist. Entomologist will be a part of Solo Ranker as well, but I think we can put her pretty high up here. Maybe even, oh, let's put her behind Cordy. We moved Ento down. We moved Ento down from Versatile for a number of reasons, actually. Reason number one is there's better harassers out there as of now, especially after Forward moving up towards the rank. Forward, you rather just have Forward being nearby, I won't lie to you. Reason number two, reason number two is because Hulaboo, Goatman, Ivy, and Opera is an issue, and especially for Entomologist as well. I don't think she fares really well against characters like these. Yeah, she can go really well against slow-moving characters like Bonbon and Sculptor when it comes to dodging bombs and dodging statues, but overall, as of now, she isn't the best. She isn't the best. She's a really good container, right? I'm not saying she's not a bad container, but when it comes to maybe soft support and other things, it's kind of a bit hard. I'll be honest with you, it's kind of a bit hard. Once in a while you meet a really, really, really good Entomologist main, but even so, there's still just better characters out there as of now after the meta shifts too. But like, she's still very solid, still very, very, very solid type of character. I'm not saying she's bad, I'm just saying there's better characters out there, but she is still very, very, very good for solo ranking. You can use her as a soft support as well to counter Knight or to counter any other hunter. But of course, if your survivor doesn't do well and after the 2 hits they get down immediately within the next 5 seconds, you're basically 40% down on your items, which is a little bit sad, I won't lie. But aside from that, yes, Entomologist is going to move down to solo ranker. Next will be Painter. I'm going to put Painter a part of tie guarantee as well. He has moved up from skill. Well, he was solo ranker last season, right? I kind of had to reevaluate some stuff on Painter after watching him being played, playing him, and some other stuff. What I would say is he definitely has potential to be solo ranker, but I feel like for a rank, it's more or less of a tie guarantee type of character, especially with Ivy, especially with just so many other characters coming out. Painter is a really good character when it comes to the fact that even if you do get down really early in towards the game, the hunter can't really leave the chair because there's no such thing as an after half rescue for a painter. The painter can sit on chair for 100% of the time, and then the survivor can rescue them last second. Painter can kite and then come back to the chair, and the survivor can rescue them again for the last second. Right, so but you like that's a little bit of an extreme scenario, but usually speaking, a lot of the times what the survivor will do, maybe if there's a forward on a team, he pairs really up against Painter, with Painter. Forward comes in with a stun. Painter being able to utilize that stun time to get the face and get the painting out, we can basically prolong the kite and guarantee a second kite. As long as Painter gets his items, he can kind of kite in a nutshell. Yes, there is still an issue in which the hunter may not necessarily look at the painting, but you know what? Overall, we don't talk about that. I think that is also another reason why he is tie guarantee. I do think that is another why he is tie guarantee. But like being able to sit on the chair for long and there's no such thing as an after half rescue kind of just forces the hunter to stay near you regardless of what happens. But like even if the hunter does decide to leave you and someone performs a no damage rescue, the next time he comes to you, you basically are guaranteed dead. But then if he leaves you, then it simply just means that hey, someone does a no damage rescue, they lose you, oofus doofus moofus. You know? But yeah, Painter's still part of tie guarantee. Next is Batter. Batter is also going to be a part of solo ranker. Overall, Batter isn't too much of a bad character if we think about it correctly, right? He can use his balls to push hunters back, and he can also harass in a long range distance. But I guess also at the same time, Goatman, Ivy, Opera, and Hula Blue is a slight bit of an issue, let's say. I would say the good news about Batter is the fact that at least he can kite Goatman if he manages to push the Goatman back properly. But also at the same time, it works the same as well as Hula Blue. If you can vault over the pallets fast enough, there's nothing much that you actually have to worry about, because I don't think Hula Blue can actually land anything on you when you are vaulting and when he's vaulting back. Overall, what I would say is like Ivy is an issue, yes, but Ivy does counter everyone who looks back, so we don't really talk about that much. Opera is slower compared to before, so it's easier for Batter to actually bat and ball the Opera to push her back as well. So for me, on this personal note, I don't think it's going to matter as much as we honestly think it should have. Not only that, I guess he can't really go up any higher. It's also because of his decoding debuff. I'm quite sure the decoding debuff was around 20%, but he also does have altruism as well, in which when he gets when a survivor gets injured, he does gain that slight movement speed boost. But even with such a slight movement speed boost, yes, you can run really fast to catch up towards your survivor, and then you can start mid-kite harassing, which is one of, you know, his good kits on that side note as well. But I guess if your survivor gets damaged too early and you just reach on towards that cipher machine, you are in a slight bit of a conundrum. You don't know whether you want to decode or you want to go in and harass, because sometimes selling is just better at the end of the day. But since you're playing Batter, you might just go in for the harass anyway, because why not? That's your role anyways. So yeah, Batter would be a part of solo ranking. That 20% decoding debuff can't really move him up any higher. And I mean, yes, the current meta hunters kind of counters him, but I guess it's just a 50-50 from both sides as well. Now then, next will be Toy Merchant. Toy Merchant will, I would say Toy Merchant, I think she's more or less of a really solid solo ranker. Now, you don't see her being played much, honestly, aside from being in 4-man teams. You even rarely see her being played in in rank at all. I won't lie to you about that. I do think the biggest issue comes with the fact that you do have Hula Blue, you do have Goatman, and you do have Ivy and Opera, which does still come as a huge issue. But overall, I would still put her in solo ranker. I guess her supportability is really good, and of course her catapult, being able to drop it down immediately at a really fast pace and then jump without any cooldown in between is kind of what we are looking for right now in the toy merchant point of view. Overall, with that in mind, because you're able to jump without any, you know, without any delay, it does make her a tiny bit stronger compared to the usual. And of course, you can drop items down for survivors as well, in which they can automatically pick up the moment they get off from chair. So it's like an auto pickup. So, you know, if your survivors know how to pick up on an item, they'll just automatically pick it up for them instead, which is fairly nice too. Toy merchant can be used as a supporter / rescuer / container / decoder. Regardless of what you want to do, she is pretty versatile, but we can't really move her up that much because she is pretty counterable. I mean, Geisha also counters her too, and then there is some oddballs here and there. But aside from that, being able to use a catapult from survivor's point of view and then get towards the next nearest containment area is also a very good thing from her kit too. Toy merchant will still remain in solo ranker tier. She will not be moving up nor moving down unless I see a significant unless I see that Toy Merchant really struggled against our current top 4 current contenders, but for now, still a part of solo ranking. Next is going to be Patient. Patient is going to be pretty high up on our container list here as well from Survivor tier list. He will be a part of Versatile. He works really well against the likes of Goatman. He works really well against the likes of Opera and Ivy. Well, I mean, he can pull distance against Ivy, which is kind of what we want, but I do think if Ivy decides to Revelation scream you, your hook will be cancelled, very similar to Toy Merchant. The catapult will be cancelled. But aside from that, he does have 3 hooks in which he's able to use to rotate or even to get upstairs towards certain areas, which does make him pretty darn good. And not only that, he is also a pretty solid character when it comes to rescuing too. I'm quite sure his secondary role now is rescue, so he's a containment rescue type of character. I mean, to be fair with you, all rescuers are like, you know, rescue type. All rescuers are containment type characters, but aside from that, he doesn't really suffer from any decoding debuff. Now, when he is decoding with another female survivor, yes, he suffers from a decoding debuff, but not with Psychologist, of course. Overall, for Patient as of now, I don't think there's going to be much changes in his rank nor in his kit, because like a lot of people will say, hey, distance pulling characters counter Patient, in which, you know, in most of the times when you're seeing rank, the moment they use their items is when Patient uses his hooks. Even if the moment that Patient hooks away and then still gets a hit, I do think it's still fine because you can still use your items compared to Perfumer. Let's just say it this way. But being able to distance pull really helps out quite a lot, especially with the fact that, like, if let's say your a dash hunter is about to dash towards you and then you hear their dash animation, you can just pull a hook immediately out and get out of their range. Unless, and I mean this, unless it's a reptilian at max, for instance, then you might be a little screwed, but usually you should be fine. But as of now, Patient being able to hook basically about anything. His condition is to hook anything. It does make him quite a nice and solid character. He will be staying up in Versatile. Now the next on the list will be Psychologist. Psychologist will be next with Patient. Psychologist is very similar to Barmaid, in which she gets a 3-hit chance type of thing. But not only that, she's slightly better than Barmaid in one sense, in which she can heal a survivor and they don't receive any decoding debuffs. But the only issue is that if she decides to heal a survivor twice, she will be at half health. But compared to Barmaid, she can heal survivor twice without worrying about anything aside from the decoding debuff. So as you can see, there's a slight trade-off between the two. Not only that, Psychologist being able to tank 3 hits. Initially speaking, when she initially got relaunched, everyone was like, oh, she's bad, she can only tank 3 hits. She's just like a lucky guy who can tank 3 hits. But I do think when it comes to stress, being able to maintain stress for a good 30 seconds before it is fully consumed does force the hunter to kind of wait until either blink is ready or wait until stress is over before you actually can down the Psychologist. Because if a no Titaner rescuer or survivor comes in to rescue, Psycho will be able to tank 2 hits after her rescue, after being rescued from chair. So that is a slight bit of issue from, you know, both sides. But aside from that, what we are at now is Psycho is still a very good character. I think no one can really complain about her too much. She does suffer against, I guess, Bonbon and Sculptor from time to time, but overall, if you're able to pull distance, you should still be fine. That 60-second guarantee kite is going to come true at the end of the day. So yeah, Psycho will still maintain up high alongside with her Wi-Fi heal too. Okay, next will be Novelist. Novelist will be a part of solo ranking as well. Overall, Novelist is quite a decent and nice character. He didn't get any buffs, he didn't get any debuffs. He was also used quite a lot last season during IVL and in IJL too, especially if I'm not wrong, in Koa too. He isn't played as much. I simply do think it's just because of Seer. I'd guess, like, why play Novelist if you can play Seer, I guess, but also at the same time, there's just much more fun characters out there instead of just looking back and then swapping with the Hunter and then paddle spamming and then rotating out, is what I personally think. But overall, he does have a little bit of a support ability, he does have a little bit of a containability, he does have a bit of everything, which is fairly nice to have, honestly, with you on that part. He's pretty good. Well, from what I know, he's pretty good. You can't really see how much page stacks he has before he gets his next novel. But aside from that, there's not too much we can really say. He didn't change too much, really. There's no buffs nor debuffs. I just think it's just more of a personal preference from everyone's point of view. Even in tourney, I don't think he's used as much because, like, you know, you have seen in IVL, there's Painter coming out, you have like newer survivors that just got him buffed, so I don't necessarily think Novelist will be played at all anymore, but we'll just have to see how it goes. Next will be Little Girl. Little Girl will have to move straight towards skill dependent. She is not a bad character to use. She can leech on to her survivors if she cannot kite anymore, but overall I'm saying that she's very skill dependent is because she needs to be very aware of she needs to be aware of most hunters, like the difference between dash hunters and normal movement hunters, because, like, usually speaking, you want to use your pages to push a hunter back for yourself, to push yourself forward and to create more distance. That does work well against characters that do not have dashes nor jumps. And I do think it works pretty well against stuns as well. But even so, for a Little Girl, it's more or less just saying if you put your page wrong once, I feel like your biggest issue would be you're gonna push the hunter towards you anyways, and then you wasted one of your pages, you wasted one of your memories. So overall, for the Little Girl, you do need to be a little bit more skill dependent if you want to use her correctly. Yes, you can just leech on towards the survivor and let them kite for you instead, but that is in exchange of your Cypher machine. So there is quite a lot to keep in mind here when you're playing Little Girl, but more or less still skill dependent as of now. Next will be Weeping Clown. Weeping Clown will be going down to versatile. Weeping Clown is versatile for quite a number of reasons now, and I do think one of the reasons is because his decoding debuff went up by 5%, so it went up from 10% to 15%. For those of you saying, hey Kudo, it's a little bit unfair for you to move him down from Kings and Queens down to versatile because of that 5% extra decoding debuff, it's really just the same reason as why Forward has moved up, because he received a 5% decoding debuff reduction. For now, it's just that Weeping Clown does decode fairly slow compared to usual. Yes, he can still support his survivors. Yes, he can still contain, but he has moved straight towards a rescuer role as of now, because most people do run him on Tightener, which is why NetEase decided to nerf his decoding speed, and, you know, just to make him a main rescuer after all instead of a decoder. So there is also that too. You could possibly say that NetEase might have hyper-tuned him after his last buff, which is why they decided to give him quite a mini nerf of 5% decoding debuff nerf. But from what I will say is, he's going to be versatile now instead of Kings and Queens. It is also because of the fact that his decoding is slow. He cannot finish his Cypher machine on time before he can go harass for a survivor, and there is the likes of Ivy, Opera, Huda Blue, and Goatman, which is a slight bit of an issue from time to time. I don't even think you're going to be able to see Weeping Clown in IVL nor IJL moving on forward next year, or even in Koa, actually. Now that I think about it, Koa is going to start pretty soon. You're not going to be able to see Weeping Clown coming out as well, especially against characters like those. So overall, we're gonna have to move him down from Kings and Queens straight towards the Versatile, and that's that for Weeping. Next on my list will be Professor. Professor will move straight up to solo ranker. I think I'll put Professor around here behind Entomologist. He is a pretty solid and decent character as of now for a number of reasons. His recent buff allows him to use his skills to actually block stun effects, such as Anne, such as Wax Artist, such as Hermit, and of course that includes Gamekeeper's traps. So anything that keeps him immobilized or stuns him, he can fully negate it just by using his Shell Shock. Not only that, right, like you might say, okay, Kudo, but that's a little bit too much to move him up from skill dependent all the way up to solo ranker. But you still have to think about the fact that, you know, this man, the reason why he was part of skill dependent is because of Wax Artist, because of Anne, because of Hermit, because of characters like these who are good in rank and can be played really well in rank that counters Professor. And Professor will have to move up because of that as well, because now what you can say is Professor by technicality does not have any counters anymore. Like, he does not have any counters anymore. He does have a slight healing debuff if he decides to drop down a scale, but I do think that he did a very nice pivot of Professor in which they made him from a support character in which they can have a mini shell shock each. So there's 3 shells in the map. Each survivor can take one each and make it as a mini flywheel. And just to put on their kite, they're going to pivot him towards a more container type role, and being able to counter Anne is fairly nice alongside with Wax Artist too, because you don't really see that much characters that are able to do that, aside from the ones that are actually able to cut corners really fast, like Entomologist and like Antiquarian. But overall for now, Professor will have to move up because of that as well. Being able to counter and stun just simply means that you waste one of the many cats that she has early game, and if you can't waste one cat, it's always almost going to be a guaranteed tie, especially against an Ant, especially against a Wax Artist as well. We also do run flywheel on Professor as well, so like not only that, Professor has like 2 chances in dodging stuns from the Wax Artist and from the Hermit. Not only that, Professor basically can flywheel towards the pallet or window, drop it down and then run away from the Ant. Just depends on your distance control as well. But overall, we have to move him up pretty high into our tier list. Next will be Antiquarian. Antiquarian is still a part of Kings and Queens. I don't really see her being played as much anymore, to be fair with you. She is still very fun to play. I just feel like everyone wants to play less hard characters, or characters that will take first chase, because not a lot of people are willing to chase Antiquarian first, and Antiquarian is mainly used as a harasser type character now when you move on towards, you know, the later stages of the game. Antiquarian has 3 flutes in which you can disarm the hunter for 4 seconds, 8 seconds, and 15 seconds. 15 seconds, yeah, 4 seconds, 9 seconds, and 15 seconds respectively if you use it all 3 at once. But of course, if you don't use all 3 at once, it will just stack up 4 seconds at a time. So, I mean, overall, it's always guarantees you a 60-second kite before you actually get the first hit, which is what is really nice about Antiquarian. I do think Antiquarian kind of firmly stands on top now because she is one of the best counters to Opera Singer as of now. She moves way slower compared to usual, so it's way easier for you to actually be able to land that stun. The 12% dash debuff, dash reduction is going to be able to help Antiquarian quite a lot too. Now, of course, she does struggle quite a bit against the likes of Goatman, the likes of Hula Blue, and the likes of Ivy still. But you can just permaban those 3 in rank if you really want to play Antiquarian, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue for you. Yes, Antiquarian can still get countered by Anne and Wax Artist, but even so, she can bring Flywheel, or maybe at the same time, she can try to use her spin to cut corners and to prevent the Wax or the stun from landing on towards her. Overall, as of now, Antiquarian will still remain on the top. There's really not much for me to say, as we said a lot about her already for the past 3 tier list, so we're going to end that there for Antiquarian. Next will be Composer. Composer will be a part of Week. I'm gonna have to put Composer in Week as our decoder now. I know I moved him up. I think he was skill dependent, or was he tie guarantee / solo ranker, but he was never versatile, that's for sure. Now, why is Composer weak? I'm sure a lot of us Composer mains in the videos right now are watching and be like, maybe you're like, hey Kudo, he's not weak, but just hear me out first before you make a comment. the reason why I'm saying Composer is weak is quite a number of factors. Yes, he has gotten a buff where if you reach 100% decoding, you don't need to basically play your music notes anymore, so you can keep that at 100% and you decode at a relatively fast speed. But my main issue right now for Composer is a lot of these meta characters are now fast movement type characters. Composer, after using tuning, I don't even think you move faster than a Weeping Clown. So that's kind of where I'm getting from. Composer, yes, you can use tuning and get your like 6 mini speed buffs and just to get away from the hunter. But if you think about it this way as well, right? Goatman, not an issue. Opera, not an issue. Hula Blue, definitely not an issue. And also at the same time, it's kind of like you might be able to tune away from Ivy, but Ivy will not be chasing you first. Ivy will not be chasing any of you or Faro Lady or Cheerleader or any characters that can pull distance immediately away from her Ostracon before you get that 20% landing on. Overall, like, it's really just, hey, you know, there is Hula Blue, there is Goldman, there is still Opera, there is Night Watch, there's Nayid, Wax Artist, Nightmare, there's Hermit, there's Undead, there's Breaking Wheel, there's Disciple, there's Bloody Queen, there's Evil Reptilian, there's Axeboy, there is, you know, maybe even a Mad Eyes can block your route away, there's a Wuchang, Geisha, Soul Weaver, Ripper, Gamekeeper, Smiley Face, and a Hellenberg if he has first presence. So, like, it's just, he has too many counters. He genuinely speaking has too many counters. You could say he doesn't really have any debuffs, but like his decoding when it reaches 100% it's good, but like his chase is not as good as TME. TME has map hacks, well, mini map hacks. Lawyer has global map hacks. Prisoner has a mini stun, and he doesn't have any vaulting debuffs. His electrocution also regenerates as well, let's just say, and then mech is just mech, right? So like, it might be a little bit unfair for Composer, but he just have too many counters as of now to make him any more or less better. Next is going to be Journalist. For me, as of now, Journalist, we will have to move her down from Solar Ranker to Tie Guarantee. Yeah, she just recently got an adjustment in which it makes her little Orphe a little bit better, but once again, I do think sometimes it depends. It's like, for me right now, Journalist is a little bit more skill dependent and a little bit more Tie Guarantee, because A, if she is first chase, she can use 4 of her little Orphes to guarantee the hunter to either drop the pallet down, break the pallet, and for her to rotate away, so it always guarantees her a 60 to 80 second containment no matter what happens. On the oddball chance where she does she spawns in a very bad place and she couldn't rotate away and her little Orphe is gone, then that does become a slight bit of an issue. But it's, you know what, it's still okay because you still have more, you know, you still have 3 more cameras left for the pallets. You should be able to contain for a tiny bit longer, and you can try to use it for a little bit of a you know, body block scenario like Perfumer. But for Journalists, it's harder for you to actually be able to body block compared to a Perfumer, if I'm going to be honest with you. Overall, for Journalist, she is Tie Guarantee for me for a multiple number of reasons. Reason number 1 is the fact that if she is not, she can rescue twice just like any other rescuer, right? But of course, for the second time she rescues, she will get doubled down, but she can rescue twice. She can basically guarantee a rescue against a chip type hunter. She can guarantee rescues against anyone in general, let's say, even against a Dream Witch. But I do think that her biggest weakness comes with containment sometimes when she is in a really bad area and she doesn't really have that much resources to use, and it's just that there's nothing much that a Journalist can do after she has no little Orphes remaining. Now, of course, she only gets a decoding debuff when the little Orphe has been either consumed or hit, but we could say 10% decoding debuff isn't a lot. I'll be honest with you, 10% decoding debuff is not a lot. She gains a 9% decoding debuff, 3% each after her little Orphe has either been consumed or hit. But if he just disappears, then it doesn't really matter. But overall, it's kind of like saying, hey, we can guarantee the rescue, we can at least do whatever we need to do. For now, Journalist, I can't really move her up any higher. She's not being played as much in ranks, and there is just way better rescuers out there, if we're going to be honest with you. One of the pros of Journalist is that she does not have such a long decoding, she does not need to take that long to finish off Cypher Machine compared to all the other rescuers, but as of now, still pretty much Tie Guarantee from my point of view. Okay, next will be Aeroplanist. Aeroplanist was a part of Versatile last season, right? I'm going to move Aeroplanist down to Solo Ranker, and I do think it's it's valid to move him actually down to solo ranker now, especially after, you know, we've basically talked about so many times about the top 4 already, so we won't say that really that much anymore. But for Aeroplanist, after getting his distance reduction, I do feel like he does suffer quite a bit, especially against players that cannot instant use his jetpacks properly, is what I feel. Because sometimes you do see that Aeroplanist stand still for 1 second for some odd reason, and then use their jetpack, in which during that 1 second the hunter basically pull distance in towards you, and you stand still for like, you do that twice. Because after your first jetpack, you need to activate the second one and then the third one, so you basically do that twice. 2 seconds is enough for the hunter to actually be able to catch up to you. And I would say his hover is still pretty nice. His 2% decoding speed buff is still pretty nice. But it just feels like sometimes some players cannot really grasp his jetpacks properly. But I can't move him down to skill dependent because he is still very useful in multiple ways. He's like a mini toy merchant. He can basically fly in for the rescue if he really wants to do so, but he doesn't have to do that because he can just jetpack in as well. He is like a mercenary and a patient, but of course just a little bit weaker, but with a little bit of a more decoding speed, because, you know, Aeroplanist does not have any conditions that he needs to meet or he needs to be required to use in order for him to activate his items. He can activate it anywhere or whenever he likes to, compared to patient and mercenary, where you need an obstacle to do it. But yeah, we're gonna have to move him down regardless, because, you know, distance being reduced kind of does hurt. And I, like before, we didn't even foresee that NetEase will release another character that moves really fast. I mean, after the introduction of Hulu Blue, I do see why. I do feel like some characters do need to move down no matter what happens. But as of now, Aeroplanist should be pretty solid on the solo ranker tier list. Next will be Cheerleader. I'm quite sure I placed Cheerleader in Kings and Queens last season. We're going to have to drop her down to Versatile here as of now. Cheerleader is still a very good character to use, but the only issue is, once again, the top 4 contenders is a slight bit of an issue. Cheerleader gets full countered by Trapeze from the Hula Boo and by Goatman. Right, she does counter Ivy and Opera right now, but like as of now, is what I would say is Goatman and Hula Blue is a quite bit of a bigger of an issue, I won't lie to you. And like even Opera can still catch up towards her even after such debuff reduction, and it's mainly distance pulling character kind of, you know, meta right now, so I do have to move her down too. She won't go any further down because of her supported capability. She can reset item cooldowns for survivors, especially with the ones on top like Seer, like Priestess, Antiquarian, and of course for forward too. She also helps everyone inside Versatile tier list as well, such as Perfumer, Female Dancer, well, not Prospector, but you could give it to Prospector if you want to, Psychologist, Patient, Acrobat, Gravekeeper, First Officer, Weeping Clown, alongside with everyone in solo ranker as well. So like Cheerleader works really well with anyone, just basically speaking anyone. If NetEase wants to buff her, I think the best thing they can do is to reduce her decoding debuff from 10% to 5%, and she will be back to Kings and Queens. But for now, with that 10% decoding debuff, I feel like she does belong in Versatile, especially with quite a few characters that actually counter her too. Now, she does pair really well with forward and with Antiquarian, especially with mech on the team as well, because like when you're encouraging someone, you can get the 26 stack pretty darn fast if the forward one Antiquarian is on your team. So there's also something there that we need to take into consideration too. But overall, Cheerleader, we have to move her down. Yeah, we do have to move her down because of meta shifts, but she is still a nice solid character to use in rank if you like her pom-poms. Next will be Puppeteer. Puppeteer is gonna have to stay up high no matter what. I feel like Puppeteer does deserve to be pretty darn high up. Maybe let's put her behind Mechanic for now, but I feel like she could definitely be way higher. As of now for Puppeteer, he's this type of character in which you can basically full counter chip characters. You can also full counter chair camps. You can also come into rescue without an issue. Right? You can also tank Terror Shocks twice. If you are 1 chip damage, you use your little puppet, little Lewis, you can tank Terror Shocks. So you can basically tank Terror Shocks twice, and you don't need to worry about going down at all. Before, it was the fact that he can only tank Terror Shocks once when he was on max health, but now it doesn't really matter as much. It really doesn't really matter as much. Puppeteer, he's a really great solo container. His main role is contain. But I feel like as of now, he might just move towards rescue capabilities instead. Of course, his only biggest debuff is that he cannot be healed, but of course that can be solved by Barmaid and by Psychologist. If they want to buff Doctor, they can buff Doctor to be able to heal wood as well, I guess. But I don't know if that's gonna happen at all, lol. He does have a 10% healing debuff when he is healing someone. So overall, all what a Puppeteer needs to do is to bring that healing buff on the bottom right-hand side of the persona tree in order to increase healing speed by 25% when healing others. Because he cannot be healed. He can heal others, but he cannot be healed. Now, of course, when he heals others, he only heals at chip damage, in which, yes, this now gets countered by chip hunters. But like overall, most of the times, if you're playing against chip hunters, you will not be looking for Puppeteer for a heal. Oh, believe me, you will not be looking for Puppeteer for a heal. Another issue is when someone is incapacitated and you are you're a Puppeteer, you need to heal a survivor 3 times while they are incapacitated for them to be able to actually tank a normal hit instead of healing them twice. So I do see where the other issue is when someone is actually down on the ground and you need to heal them and they don't want to use the exit pass. But aside from that, he's a very solid container. 8 seconds of 8% movement speed boost to take 75% damage. That is like one hit, one chip. That is insanely strong. Alongside with that 8% movement speed boost, right? So like what I would say, look, there's really not much we can say. He is definitely up there on the tier of kings and queens. We will not be moving him down at all. Next is Fire Investigator. Fire Investigator will be a part of Versatile as well. I initially thought that I should probably put Fire Investigator in kings and queens, but now, you know what, we'll think about it again. He does suit really well in Entomologist, but that's only simply because of the fact that you're in a 4-man team and it kind of just works really well with you, so not really in rank when you're tier 7 and above. But aside from that, Fire Investigator actually deserves to be in Versatile for a number of reasons as well. Reason number 1, only 5% decoding debuff, and he can gain a 5% decoding buff if he is near a hunter or if he's containing a hunter or if the hunter decides to leave him. Reason number 2 is the fact that for Fire Investigator, his airbags is pretty darn decent. I won't lie, his airbags is actually pretty good. Like, you genuinely speaking just wouldn't expect it until they start playing him in tourneys as well. Like, just, you know, being on the airbag for 0.2 seconds, get a mini dash out, and then of course a small movement speed boost to go towards wherever you want to go. That is pretty strong, and you can use it every 15 seconds unless a hunter charge attacks it and breaks it, right? But overall, from what I would say is Fire Investigator is a really good character to use in solo ranker, and his support capability is something that when you try it out, you realize, oh wait a second, this is actually pretty strong. But not only that, for Fire Investigator as of now, he does, like, if we're gonna be fully honest with ourselves as well, right, 5% decoding debuff isn't a lot. Like, yes, it is a lot if you compare it to the normal survivor decoding speed, but if he just stands near a hunter and tries to deploy an airbag down for the survivors to either A, use it, or B, block the hunter's way, then by the time you finish doing that, you most likely nullified your 5% decoding debuff, so like you're overall fine still. Fire Investigator can also be used as a rescuer type character as well because of his airbag capabilities. And now when you drop it down, it basically it pumps the ball faster. It pumps the airbag faster. So like when you push the hunter back, you also gain a movement speed boost. You can use your airbag to punish yourself towards the chair and perform a rescue. So like, he's very similar to a Merc in a sense, right? But just not better than a Merc, let's just say it this way. Like for Fire Investigator, you can use him any way you want, really. I would just say any way you want, really. The only bad thing about Fire Investigator is the fact that he cannot recycle his items. So there comes an issue with that. He cannot re-pick up his items. And honestly, that's about that. Next will be Faro Lady. Faro Lady will also be a part of Versatile. Faro Lady is actually one of the strongest containment decoder that I know as of now. You could say she is on par with Lawyer when it comes to the containability among the decoders. But what I would say more or less is Faro Lady counters a lot of hunters because of her mind games. As of now, if you throw out your shtick, if you throw out your apocratic wand, okay, I cannot say the word, but if you throw out her wand, it does not have any sound effects, and you also cannot hear Faro Lady walking footsteps as well. Now there is a chance that you might be able to hear the breed, but that's like really rare. But you know, overall you should be able to distinguish where you cannot distinguish where Faro Lady is, even if and you cannot distinguish when she has either A, placed out the wand, or B, not placed out at all, and is just walking a straight line. And of course, when she's invisible as well, you don't know really what to do. You really don't know what to do at the end of the day. I'm quite sure Faro Lady can maintain invisible state for 20 to 30 seconds, so that's kind of 20 to 30 second free containment. But not only that, when she uses her wand and when she successfully baits you into dropping into like running away while she runs backward, her stacks, her invisibility stacks start slowly but surely to move down until you get back into range. By that point, we can simply just say one wand equals to 40-second containment. One wand equals to like an extra 10-second, containment time. And then when Faro Lady gets hit, of course, it's a 40-second decode. It's a 40-second cooldown duration. But aside from that, like by the time you got the first hit, you can probably say yes, blink is ready. But her containment is honestly speaking really good. You can waste so much time away from the hunter. But I do think one of the biggest cons of Faro Lady is the fact that you cannot hide. Because the moment you hide, you're just going to show your icy trails. And you don't want that happening. And that the hunter will know who you are and where you are. So that's one thing to actually to be worried about. But overall, Faro Lady, a very nice decoder. You know, she injects 10% Cypher Machine towards the Cypher. And she only takes 72 seconds actually to finish off the Cypher Machine. So that's faster than like... She's like rank 3 when it comes to decoding speed, if I'm not wrong. And not only that, she can steal Cypher Machines as well if the hunter is trying to camp the Cypher. So like it just gives her a lot of leeway and, you know, reliability when it comes to preventing hunters from Cypher camping and such. Last but not least, Knight. Knight is a recently new release character that simply just came out. I think we need to take a lot into consideration for Knight, but I do solely and strictly believe for now he is a better solo ranker. He is, honestly speaking, pretty decent on the solo ranking tier list. He works really well against the majority. I would say he works really well against 70% of the hunters. Why, you may say? Because either A, they need to use your skills to catch up towards you, so then like the moment they caught up towards you, you can use your ability or you can predict your skill. Or B, they can only use physical attacks, such as Ripper, such as Hellenberg, such as just so many other people, right? I know a lot of people were saying that Knight isn't strong at all, but yes, I would kind of disagree for a few number of reasons. Reason number one being the fact that yes, there is some prediction in this game that you need to get correct or else you get punished for it. But overall, a lot of the characters don't have that many leeway when it comes to things like that. Also, I do think it's most of the times 50-50 too, because like they're either going to perform an attack or they're either going to perform a ability, in which sometimes most of the hunters will perform an ability before they perform an attack if they're going up against you. So what you want to do sometimes is to actually use double attack predict or even double ability predict depending on what you want to do. You just want to maximize that 8 seconds free window for you to be able to get away. That's what you want to do. Very similar to Seer towards a certain extent, but only for yourself. It's also with the fact that like people might say, but hey, if I want to use my ability and I'm really far away from the Knight can just basically, you know, Knight can ability predict me, but I'll just perform 2 basic attacks. But there's still some things that you have to take into consideration. Consideration number 1 is the fact that if you use your basic attack, you have a basic attack recovery animation. You need to understand that you have a basic attack animation and you have a basic attack recovery animation, and during those times you will be stationary, which allows the Knight to pull a little bit more of a distance away from you. So like not only that, it's more or less just saying, oh, if Knight predicts me early, it's fine, I'll just walk up to him and hit him instead, or even I just use my ability instead. No, it doesn't work like that. There's much more layers to it than you think there will be, which is what you have seen. I actually have seen Hamantu playing Knight quite a lot. He's currently S-Badge Knight. I just haven't had time to spectate more Knights coming out, you know, being played a lot more. But for now, what I know is Knight is definitely not worse than solo ranking. Of course, not only that, his rescue ability is, honestly speaking, pretty good as well. It takes him 1 second to do his chivalry stuff. I'm quite sure that's a Knight of Oath if we go towards the more medieval ages. I'm quite sure it was a Knight of Oath. You go towards the more prehistoric ages. Yes, it does take 1 second to channel, but the moment he actually gets the channel out, you can 100% be able to allow yourself and the teammate that's on chair to tank 1 hit for 8 seconds. So like you can only take a chip hit for 8 seconds. That's what we're talking about. Of course, this only activates 1, so usually what people would do is they would either use Tight Turner first and then do it, or maybe they would just do it immediately and allow the survivor to see whether or not they can kite over tide turner time. Also, alongside with that fact too, right? For night, when you go into rescue, you can basically just do 2 normal attack predictions, or even 2 ability predictions if you want if you want the hunter just to basic attack you and then get it over and done with, right? This works especially well against ship hunters like Gala and Bonbon and Mad Eyes. All you need to do is if you don't want them to have such strong character count, just do your ability prediction once and then a basic attack prediction for the second time. Or even what you can do is you can do a prediction twice, you can do ability prediction twice, just to, you know, guarantee that you can, you know, get that rescue in no matter what happens. I know some people might say, hey, I want to do ability prediction and then I want to wait 8 seconds until the 8 seconds dries out, I can block a damage, which I would say, yeah, you can definitely do that. I wouldn't do that. I would do that in containment type stuff, but I still wouldn't. I like you might say, hey, it's probably better overall to do that. I would say, nah, I'd say it's probably better overall just for the hunter to perform either ability or something else instead of allowing you to gain a movement speed boost and to tank and roll and hit. I, as a hunter, would rather just get that 4-second or get that ability notification, and then 4 seconds later I can just immediately use my ability to catch up towards you and maybe try land a hit on you. That's what me, myself, and I as a hunter would say. I don't know about any other hunters, but that's just for myself. But overall for Night, he is pretty much a really decent character. I would recommend people playing him, definitely, for sure, 100%. He is also pretty fun as well on that side note too. But as of now, for Night, overall, a fairly decent character using solo rank. A very nice type of character that if you want to become first chase, you will definitely become first chase. But aside from that, that is going to be the end of Season 34 Survivor tier list, or this could be Season 35. I didn't really check which season we are in as of now, but you will see that in the title as well. But of course, once again, Shogabans, if you do have any opinions, you can definitely leave it down below. I will read it. I usually change my opinions when I read certain comments, but we will just have to see whether it's well formulated or not. But as of now, that's going to be it from me today. I'm Kuroshiro, and hey, if you're new around here, why not give me a sub? If you like the video, why not like it and give it a share? I will see you all in. I hope this video comes out before I leave for CN, but I will either see y'all on stream or in CN. So that's it for me for now. Bye bye. Have a good day. Good night.